Communities in Hurricane Milton's path do not have a moment to catch their breath between Helene and Milton. Two historic storms in 2 weeks. I want to thank everyone who has followed local guidance to evacuate ahead of landfall. I know it's really tough, leaving behind your home, your belongings, everything you own. But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours.
Back at home, it's been announced this evening that Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Downing Street tomorrow as part of a tour to European nations seeking support for Ukraine's resistance against Russia. The Ukrainian president will meet Sir Keir Starmer and Secretary-General of NATO Mark Rutte, with the Prime Minister expected to underline the UK's commitment to the defence of Ukraine. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said tonight that the meeting will involve broad strategic decisions on allied support for Ukraine. It will be the second time the world leaders have met since Sir Keir Starmer was elected in July. And finally, some sad news this evening. Holocaust survivor Lily Ebert has died at the age of 100. Tributes have been paid to Ebert, who has been described as a trailblazing advocate for Holocaust education. So King Charles praised her extraordinary resilience and courage and said that she has become an integral part of the fabric of our nation. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Massive questions for the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper tonight. Taylor Swift was given a taxpayer-funded blue light escort to her Wembley concert on the same day Yvette Cooper attended that concert for free, reportedly. It's believed that the police initially refused to provide an armed guard for the special escort group, which is normally reserved for the royal family and government ministers. This is the same level of protection the Home Office has refused to provide for Prince Harry. But this is where it gets really interesting. Taylor Swift and her mother reportedly threatened to cancel the gigs following a terror threat in Vienna. A source says that Home Secretary Yvette Cooper then stressed to our police force that it would be embarrassing and economically damaging if Swift cancelled. But it has been revealed that the Home Secretary went for free to a Taylor Swift concert as a guest of Swift's music label Universal Music because her husband, Ed Balls, was given 4 tickets and she went with him. So she did not declare this because apparently the tickets were only worth £170, which is less than the 300 quid that would make it a declarable interest. And on that same night, Taylor Swift got a taxpayer-funded blue light escort to the gig. There are also reports that Sadiq Khan was involved, the same Mayor Khan who unveiled the Swiftie steps and a mural to her and then attended the concert as well for free. Labour seemed confused about what went on here, really. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy seemed to admit that Labour politicians were involved with discussions with police over that taxpayer-funded escort. She then got mauled by Sky News' Kay Burley this morning.
Sky News was at these events in these same boxes as well, to be completely fair.
Who was there?
And, well, you were there.
I paid for my tickets.
I
paid for my tickets.
Well, he's paying for his tickets.
Eventually you paid for them.
But you know, he's paying for his tickets and he's
Eventually,
been clear
I paid
about
for mine
that
up
because he
front
thinks it's
8 months
important.
earlier.
But he,
so please don't do that.
No, but he genuinely does think it's important
Who else
when
went,
he is
apart
paying
from
for
me?
it.
From Sky?
Well, I went, and I've declared that in line with the ministerial code.
But you don't work for Sky.
But your suggestion is that somehow they shouldn't be going.
That's exactly my suggestion.
Grief. A statement from the Home Office initially suggested that Labour was involved in discussions about a police escort. This statement reads, of course, when events of this scale take place, you would expect the government, the Mayor's Office and the Met Police to work together to ensure that they can be held safely and securely. Well, ex-Tory leadership candidate and the former Home Secretary James Cleverly wrote a letter to Yvette Cooper to get clarity on this, asking, did you or any of your ministers speak to Sir Mark Rowley at the Met Police about protection for Ms Swift? What advice did you or your ministers receive from Sir Mark or other senior Met Police officers? He went on to say that the role of this escort group is not for use by pop stars. Well, now Labour are backing off a bit, saying that they weren't really involved. This is a police matter. Nothing dodgy has happened at all. And even if they were involved. It had nothing to do with the fact that a load of Labour MPs were looking forward to seeing Taylor Swift for themselves. It comes off the back of numerous sleaze allegations. Starmer himself has finally U-turned and paid for his own tickets to that concert. But now, 59% of the British public think that Labour is sleazy. And if the police and Labour ministers thought the terror threat against Taylor Swift was really so bad, then why did so many Labour politicians, including the Prime Minister and, as it turns out now, the Home Secretary, go to her concerts themselves? Surely they can't have been that worried by the terror threat, can they? I mean, there's another thing as well to keep an eye on with Sir Keir. Remember when he said this about beer and korma gate during lockdown?
But if the police decide to issue me with a fixed penalty notice, I would, of course, do the right thing and step down.
Well, now he has been referred to police over a potential breach of electoral law regarding Lord Wahid Ali's £18 million Covent Garden penthouse. Starmer told Parliament that he was living at Lord Ali's in Covent Garden, but on his nomination form before and after the election, he appears to have declared as a sworn truth on his election nomination form that he was actually living in Kentish Town. That is according to the Guido Fawkes website. They say that the law is clear. You must list a current address or you are committing a criminal offence. Keir Starmer denies any wrongdoing, but let's watch this space. Either way, I just don't think Labour can recover from this horrendous start. And I will stress as well that Yvette Cooper is currently denying any wrongdoing as well. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. The Director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We're also joined by businessman and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster and journalist Nina Mishkov. Mark, I'll start with you on this. So the idea that one of two nights where Taylor Swift was given a taxpayer-funded blue light police escort just happens to be one of the nights when our Home Secretary was attending. What do you think about that?
If you want to be kind, it's a startling coincidence, isn't it, Patrick? If you want to be very kind. Look, what Labour's done here is they have dug their own grave on public ethics and then absolutely dived in head first. They could not have been, you've shown some clips already, they could not have been clearer that everything was going to be cleaned up in politics once and for all. We heard Keir Starmer, just a clip earlier, no VIP fast lanes. Well, what was this if not a VIP fast lane? If they had not been holier than thou on every single thing the Conservatives took, I don't think they'd be in anything like this sort of trouble. They could actually say, look, it's sort of normal practice for politicians to meet at quite high-grade events. We shouldn't be ashamed of it. But when you start to be able to piece together, at least prima facie, on the face of it, that there's a connection between entertainment of politicians and different security decisions, or at least some influence exerted by the Home Secretary on a procedural position, it looks absolutely terrible. Labour here is being hoisted by their own petard. What
do you make of this, then, Adam? You know, Yvette Cooper saying, well, I couldn't declare this at the time because it was only £170. I'll stress again, the tickets were given for free to her husband, Ed Balls, by Taylor Swift's music label. She then went along. I mean, if they were that worried about the terror threat for Taylor Swift, surely they wouldn't have gone themselves.
That. You know, you wouldn't let children go there, would you? You would put a stop to the concert, or there would be some sort of mass policing there. But look, I don't think anyone thought the first 100 days of this Labour government would be so chaotic. I expected them to be bad. I didn't expect them to be this bad. Now, I speak to people out and about, and it's very much now, it's us and them. These were meant to be for the working man, for the working woman, but they're getting freebies, they're getting use of an £18 million penthouse, they're getting free clothes, free glasses. You know, Lord Ali is like an ATM machine, they can just go and withdraw money. This is embarrassing, and I don't think Labour are going to get rid of this label now.
Well, on that, 59% of the public apparently think Labour are sleazy, which I don't think many people had on the bingo cards when Labour first came into office, to be fair, Nina. Can they recover from this?
They will eventually recover, but of course they're stuck with the label because they've really screwed up. They have screwed up. And part of that was because they didn't have the right team in place. They've now hopefully moved towards that. The other thing is that, you know, the election was called earlier than everybody thought it was going to be. So they're kind of scrambling to get themselves elected, but then they didn't have the right team in place. And they have screwed up. Sue Gray was a woman who thought journalists were scumbags, which she's in Cabinet. Now, the thing is, with the media... Thank you. With the media, well, you're media too, and you're a journalist, I assume.
I thought you were going to say I was a scumbag then for a second.
No. But the thing is,
just a lunatic.
The thing is, between politicians and media, there is a game that has to be played, and she wasn't going to play that game.
Yeah.
And now they're hopefully going to play the game. Now, can we get to the Taylor Swift thing, because it's all gone completely over the top. There is some thinking that Taylor Swift does not deserve an escort of that kind. Well, let me just tell you why she does deserve it. First of all, it's there for royals, senior politicians, visiting heads of state, OK, who might be in danger.
Which one is she?
Well, wait a minute. Taylor Swift, and this is you being snobby now, Taylor Swift is the largest pop star in the world.
Oh, well, she could pay for it herself then, couldn't she?
Now, hang on a minute. She can't provide armed motorcade, OK? She's the largest pop star in the world. She has just come from a threat in Vienna, which had 3 concerts cancelled.
Yep.
She has 500,000 fans coming. Now, when Ariana Grande gave a concert in Manchester, it wasn't Ariana Grande that was harmed.
Yeah.
It was, unfortunately, our young people who died.
Right.
So it's not just to protect Taylor Swift, it's to protect her audience. Hang on a minute.
How does it protect her audience?
Because if somebody will get in the way of her, look.
Hang on, the blue lights to get her to Wembley is clearly for Taylor Swift, not for the fans.
Yeah.
There was not a suggestion that there should be, I don't know, another 300 armed security guards outside of the stadium. This was directed to protect Taylor Swift.
Can I just get right to the nub of this, though? Because, look, there is a case to say that Taylor Swift should have a blue light escort.
Yes.
OK, so there is that case of it. The issue here, really, is whether or not the Home Secretary at the time decided that Taylor Swift should have one on the day that she was due to attend that concert.
You don't know that. You don't know.
Well, we do know that.
What we do know is that she did attend that concert for free on the day that Taylor Swift was given that.
The point being that Taylor Swift brought £1 billion.
No, I'm sorry. No, Nina, look.
And for her to cancel, she threatened to cancel.
Well, she may do, but I'm afraid this is private enterprise. I dare say that Adam occasionally has to pay for security at his pub. That's not paid for by the taxpayer, despite the fact that Adam's pub generates income for the economy. Football matches and the security around them are paid by the football teams.
The £700,000 that it cost was paid back by the organisers.
The entire cost of this should be borne by private enterprise, not by the state.
It was eventually.
Right, but eventually, the cost of security for a big concert, by and large, unless you've got a specific terror threat that MI5 identified, should be paid for.
Have you ever been with a pop star in a car that's covered with screaming fans? Because I have.
But that's a private matter, not a state matter.
I won't ask about that, but
I tell you,
it's all right. We haven't got time.
I've been in South America with a motorcade escort.
But they pay millions, pay for security.
Right. Adam, it's how it looks, though, isn't it? And again, you know, Yvette Cooper, Ed Balls, anyone else I've dared to mention about this will deny any wrongdoing. But it looks as though a load of different Labour MPs had tickets to go and see Taylor Swift, and they were desperate for that concert to go ahead.
There's a word. It stinks. It completely stinks.
And if this was
the Tories, if this was Boris, if this was any of the high-ranking Tory MPs, this would be all over the Mirror. This would be all over the Guardian. This would be
so many freebies. It wasn't even worth
this would be a big deal. And look, it might not be. It looks very sus.
And the key thing is Labour asked to be judged by a higher level of criteria.
They have screwed up. But
you bet they have.
Going for Taylor Swift and saying she didn't
deserve... Not going for Taylor Swift.
No, going for this particular item, she did deserve...
Do you like Taylor Swift?
Yes, I do.
What's your favourite song?
I am not going to go into this.
On that note, for want of a better phrase. That was a lively start. Thank you very much. No doubt this story will rumble on because it just kind of is all the details are coming out about an hour before I came on air, so we await for any more info. But, well, talking of, getting things for free, it is time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra $3,000 in your bank account each month for the next year. That's a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details on how you need to make that money yours.
Good luck.
Still to come, the boss of MI5 set alarm bells ringing with this warning yesterday.
Finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most. The worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
Well, it's pretty clear on that, wasn't he? But somehow the media wound up blaming extreme right-wing ideology for Britain's terror threat level. But shouldn't we be more worried about the threat of Islamist extremism? Reform UK's Lee Anderson joins me very soon. But up next, rumours are swirling tonight that the government is considering handing the anti-extremism czar, Lord Wolney, his P45, just months after he said that far-left groups like Just Stop Oil should be treated like terrorist organisations. So has Labour now caved into the eco mob? Going head-to-head on this are the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson, and a Just Stop Oil spokesperson, Dr. Bing Jones. Don't go anywhere.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're joined by Lewis Oakley and Esther Stanhope. And Lewis, let's start with free gear Keir, shall we? It's been the story of the week, and apparently it's led to, well, calamity in the polls.
Yeah, so he has dropped by 26 points in the opinion polls. And, I mean, it's just been sort of going down from day one. He didn't even start that high. But, yeah, this is just bad optics. As we say, he hasn't done anything illegal or wrong. Everything was declared. But at the same time, you're telling people they don't get their winter fuel allowance and you're there walking off with your swag bag. It's just not a good look. And even, I was thinking as well, the optics of them trying to clamp down on MPs having second jobs. Any of those could turn around and say, well, actually, we have to pay for our own clothes. I just think it's just bad optics that he's had. And, we've got those comparisons of Sunak in the stands. He's just sat amongst the people. And
Prince William goes to Villa games, albeit in the director's box, but it's not an 8k per game seat. And by the way, can I just mention, this isn't just an isolated Labour incident. Since the start of their tenure, they were accused of filling the civil service with previous Labour donors, previous Labour aides, people who worked for Labour Together think tank. The civil service is meant to be politically neutral, and they bypassed a lot of procedures to get people into their positions, not least the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who parachuted Ian Caulfield, his name was, who donated £5,000 personally to her, and then he ended up in the Treasury with a 175k a year job. Yes, he did resign after it was revealed in the Times, but it does make you wonder, you've spent years having a go at the Tories for this, and you do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's full of hypocrisy, and also the whole Sue Gray thing, and they were slagging off the Conservatives for not towing the line, and now they're being hypocrites because now they're taking freebies.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, coming up after the Tory leadership candidates were whittled down to 2, who would Reform UK fear most? Lee Anderson joins me very soon. But first, has Labour absolutely caved in to the eco mob? It's time for the head-to-head. All right, so rumours swirling tonight that the government's anti-extremism czar, Lord Walney, could be facing the axe, just months after he warned that far-left groups are wreaking havoc on Britain. Lord Walney has been an outspoken critic of groups like Just Stop Oil and Palestine Action, claiming in a report earlier this year that they should be treated like terrorist organisations and that it should be an offence to belong to such a protest group. Well, surprise, surprise, the government is now reportedly reviewing his role. It comes after the anti-Brexit, anti-Tory pressure group led by donkeys last night called for Labour to release so-called climate activists from jail.
Among those currently held in UK jails are 5 Just Stop Oil activists serving sentences between 4 and 5 years. Meanwhile, 2 other protesters who threw soup on the glass of Van Gogh sunflowers have just been sentenced to 20 months and 2 years in prison. Well, now there's a new parliament and a new government led by a man who used to understand the role protest plays in making the UK a better place to live. It's time for Labour to remember its roots and reinstate the right to peaceful protest.
Indeed, Labour's biggest corporate donor in the run-up to the election was none other than climate change campaigner and former Just Stop Oil donor Dale Vince. So as rumours swirl that the government's anti-extremism czar, Lord Walney, is facing the chop, tonight I'm asking, has Labour caved in to the eco mob? Make sure you go to gbnews.com/your say, tweet me at GBNews, and when you're there, have a little vote in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now are the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson, and Just Stop Oil spokesperson Dr. Bing Jones. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Harry, I'll start with you. I mean, does this look a little bit like they are trying to appease the eco mob by shifting Lord Walney to one side?
Well, there's been a lot of confusion about this story. We heard yesterday this report from the Byline Times that he was out of a job. Then we heard from the government he was still in post. And so now there's a lot of confusion around this particular story. I think we should go back to what the key problems were here. We saw Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, these extreme green groups who were actually really threatening public safety. We've seen ambulances blocked from going down the road. We've seen persistent illegal behaviour. We've seen Extinction Rebellion activists jailed for a plot that would have actually brought the southeast of England to deadlock by freezing traffic on the M25. These are really dangerous actions that could cost lives and ruin you know, many livelihoods and do real damage to the economy. So there was a need for him to address this and address how the police responds to this because they haven't necessarily been acting in the most robust way. When we see these devastating protests, we see protesters who are committing offences again and again and again and not seeing justice faced.
Fine. Dr. Bing Jones, Just Stop Oil spokesperson, I will bring you in here. Presumably Just Stop Oil would welcome the removal of Lord Walney. He thinks that you're basically extremists should be treated as extremist groups.
Yeah, Lord Walney is not independent. He's paid, he's part of a group that's paid for by fossil fuels and arms interests. Appointing him is a kind of a corruption of the democratic process. It's basically allowing the fossil fuel industry to have a voice in silencing people who are trying to warn us all of the most awful.
Sorry, didn't Dale Vince donate to Labour? Is that what you're doing?
Pardon?
Well, Dale Vince gave the Labour Party a load of money when he was a big backer of Just Stop Oil. Is that not quite a similar thing? Money, vested interests, influence?
No, Dale Vince doesn't have an official post whereby he advises the government.
Right.
And look, we're looking at the collapse of the climate. Patrick, Are you not looking at your television screen? We're looking at scientists screaming, and we're looking at hurricanes in America, which are the worst ever hurricanes that have ever hit that part of the country. We're looking at hundreds of people dying. We're looking at billions of pounds worth of damage. We're looking at human misery on a massive scale. And all you want to do is to quibble about whether or not this is a right or left.
The thing I'm quibbling over is something I think actually cuts right to the very core of our democracy, Harry, which is whether or not a pressure group, an environmental pressure group like Just Stop Oil, which has, by many people's metric, employed relatively extreme action over the course of the years, been able to have some influence over the current government that we've got. Do you think they do, Harry?
Well, if this decision has in fact been made, then it would suggest, unfortunately, they do, that they're ignoring the risks that some of these groups pose. And we've heard much extremism from these kind of groups. It's sad to hear these doom and gloom warnings repeated. The reality is that fewer people are dying in extreme weather, and children, are being poisoned by this catastrophic narrative. They're being they're leaving school to go on protests, and adults who should know better are facilitating children leaving schools. So.
Harry,
these groups...
That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. The misery caused by the climate warming, the heating of the climate, is absolutely dire. There are millions of people who are being displaced from their homes. They can't grow the food that their grandfathers...
Why do you keep throwing soup over a Van Gogh, then? What's the point of that?
Because the essence of the problem is that people have the government and you guys in the media are not conveying the urgency of this problem. It is getting worse by the minute. And the Van Gogh stunt, you might call it, got millions and millions of hits. We are managed to be able to raise this issue. Patrick, this is absolutely dire. I've told you before, I'm a doctor. I've watched people dying necessarily because they did not know how bad their problem was. This is the world's situation now.
Sorry, just clarify that for me. Is that all right? Sorry, what do you mean? So sorry, I don't quite understand what you mean. As a doctor, you watch people dying, what, because of climate crisis in this country? Sorry, did I misunderstand that?
Sorry. I watched people with cancers who did not realise how bad their cancers were until it was too late, and they died unnecessarily. And that is the situation that we're in at the moment. And people like Harry, who are paid to advocate for the fossil fuel industry, which is causing the collapse of our climate, this is absolutely terrible, because people do not realise the cause of the hurricanes and the droughts,
it's complete nonsense.
And we need to do that.
It's complete nonsense, if I may interject there, to say I'm being paid by fossil fuels. That's not the case. I am concerned about climate change, and I want to see sensible policies to respond to that threat. What would happen if we follow the green extremists' policies is that the global economy would collapse, millions of people would die, because the anti-growth agenda is so dangerous.
The global economy is going to collapse. It's collapsing right now.
OK, well, it's not, is it, Bernie? All right. OK. All right, guys. Look, I'm afraid we are out of time, but just not quite in the same way that Dr. Bing-Jones thinks we are. We're going to go to your poll now, but thank you very much to the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson, and Just Stop Oil spokesperson Dr. Bing-Jones. Until next time. So, who do you agree with? Has Labour caved into the eco-mob? Albert on X says typical Labour, more concerned with appeasing noisy protesters than standing up to the silent majority. Another example of their inability to make tough decisions. Sarah says caved, they are the eco-mob. All right, OK. Well, your verdict is now in. 97% of you think that Labour has indeed caved to the eco-mob. 3% of you say Labour has not. It will be interesting to see whether or not Lord Walney is still in post this time tomorrow, won't it? But coming up, thanks to your generous donations, my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly has reached just over £220,000. But I'm not going to stop here. We've got to raise as much money as possible this winter. I'm going to be joined by a pensioner very, very soon who's worried that she will freeze to death. She's in, apparently, Britain's coldest town, or England's coldest town, I should say. Stories like hers that make your donations all the more important. And I am going to need a bit of audience participation shortly from you, so stay where you are. But first, a stark warning from the boss of MI5 yesterday.
Finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most. The worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
Yeah, couldn't have been clearer, but somehow the media wound up blaming the so-called far right for Britain's substantial terror threat level. Shouldn't we be more worried about Islamist extremism, and what should we do about it? Well, Reform UK's Lee Anderson, he's live and he's next. I'm also going to ask him who Reform would fear more, Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick. Stay tuned.
Good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather from the Met Office. As we go through into tomorrow, it is going to turn drier for many of us with some clearer or brighter skies, but with that it is also going to be a bit chillier because as the low pressure that's been dominating the weather across the UK recently drifts away towards the east, we will then get a northerly flow, and that northerly air is going to bring something a little bit colder. For the time being though, still some clouds, some outbreaks of rain across many parts of England and Wales. All of this though shifting further southwards with clearer skies developing across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And under these clearer skies, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, turning pretty chilly. Could be a touch of frost in some places. A milder night though across the south. Here it is going to be a cloudier start to tomorrow morning. There will be some outbreaks of rain, could be the odd heavier burst, but most of this will clear through as we go through the morning. For central parts, things brightening up quite quickly, and also some decent bright sunny weather across parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England and Scotland. But all the time there will be some showers around. The showers will be most likely in areas exposed to that northerly wind, so parts of Northern Ireland, Northern Scotland and down the eastern side of England and Scotland as well. But even a few showers are possible elsewhere. We may see 1 or 2 showers developing in some inland places too, but for many it is going to be a much drier day than the last couple of days, and it's going to be a bit brighter. But like I said, we do have that cold air pushing its way in, so temperatures markedly lower and feeling pretty cold indeed, especially in those brisk northerly winds. As we go towards the end of the week, and a bit of a north-south split developing, wetter weather across northern parts, so Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain, perhaps some winteriness over the higher ground, staying drier and brighter across the southern 2/3 of the UK, however. Again, through the weekend, some rain is likely, mainly in the north. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. So, the head of MI5, Ken McCallum, issued a stark warning yesterday about the UK's terror threat level in a speech. He said that the main threat was unquestionably about Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but headlines managed to blame extreme right-wing ideology, radicalising kids as young as 13. I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking that he was totally blaming the so-called far right, wouldn't you? I mean, it is really strange, actually, seriously, because this is what he actually said.
We've seen appalling loss of life in Gaza and now Lebanon, and conflict spiralling in the wider region, with all the implications that brings for Middle Eastern and UK security. Today we are powerfully alive to the risk that events in the Middle East directly trigger terrorist action in the UK. I'll finish here with the terrorist trend that concerns me most: the worsening threat from Al-Qaeda, and in particular from Islamic State.
Well, Lee Anderson joins me now, the Reform UK MP. Lee, I mean, are you more worried about the threat of Islamism than the threat of the far right?
I think you know my answer to that, Patrick. We've seen over the past few years, we've let everybody and his dog into this country. We've had uncontrolled borders. We've seen people sneaking in the country through the back door. We've seen people being radicalised in this country. And I'm actually very, very concerned. We see the events going off in the Middle East. We see the events going off in Gaza, you know, and we've seen, I think there's a poll this week where, you know, lots of young people have, you know, sympathy with what's going on in Palestine. It's very worrying, Patrick, and you know, I fear for this country sometimes, I really do. And we've sat idly by over the past few years and done absolutely nothing to stop this threat.
It's another thing that I'm pretty convinced that we're going to ignore, because we have ignored it. Look, he made the point that, you know, something like 25% of their time is taken up by far right. He's worried about, you know, far right radicalisation by young people. I don't want to dismiss that entirely, but that does mean unequivocally, yet again, that the major problem is Islamist terrorism. You mentioned there another report that came out. 1 in 10 young people, 18 to 24, basically support Hamas. We've had MPs killed by Islamist terrorists. You know, and I just wonder, what would you do? What would you do, Lee? Because if we are going to see it massively kick off in the Middle East, it is going to impact us on the streets here. So how do we deal with that?
Well, look, we've seen Sakir. He was very robust, Patrick, you know, just a few weeks ago, sorry, when people were out there, you know, demonstrating, throwing bricks and being nuisances in society. They was arrested, charged and put in prison within a matter of days. If he took the same sort of robust action with this demographic we're talking about, it would stop very, very quickly.
Well, of some of the people who we actually showed on this show, on this very programme, we showed people being racist against Jewish people. We also showed people, it could not have been clearer, holding a sign saying, "I love Hezbollah," people calling Hamas freedom fighters and pledging their allegiance to them. If any of those people have been arrested, well, we're not sure, but will they then go to prison for the same amount of time as some people who were just in and around some of the disturbances that we saw previously? We'll have to wait and see. But, Lee, I just want to whiz on to a story that was, you know, certainly one of the biggest stories of the day. The Tory leadership candidates have been whittled down to just 2.
Kemi Badenoch, 42 votes. James Cleverly, 37 votes. And Robert Jenrick, 41 votes. So, as a result of that ballot, James Cleverly is eliminated from the contest, and Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick now go forward to the ballot of members.
I mean, I don't know if you clocked it, but the guy on the right couldn't even do his suit up properly there. But James Cleverly is out. Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, they're going head-to-head before a winner is announced on the 2nd of November. Lee, who do you fear most?
I don't fear any, to be honest with you, Patrick. I mean, it's going to be... I mean, I know Rob very, very well. Class him as a friend. He's a good guy. So is Kemi. Rob's going to campaign quite clearly on leaving the ECHR. Kemi's not come out and actually admitted she will do that. The problem Rob's got, Patrick, is, yes, he might want to campaign on leaving the ECHR, but the parliamentary party, the shadow cabinet, whoever he picks, will never back him on that. And it's going to be interesting, Patrick, to see how many people are actually left in the Conservative Party membership. I suspect it's not as many as Reform UK. We'll have to wait and see. But which type of members are actually still in the Conservative Party? Is it the Wets, the Liberals, the Remainers, the Remoaners? Because I tell you what, Patrick, I think the vast majority of the true Conservatives have left and come to Reform UK.
That is going to be a massive question that will be answered when they have this vote. And I think you're absolutely spot on. I was at Tory Party conference and I was quite surprised by some of the views that I heard there. It did make me wonder whether or not actually quite a lot of them had gone to Reform. When it comes to Robert or Kemi, which one do you think Reform would most likely do a deal with?
I don't know. I think Kemi, to be honest with you, Patrick, she sort of said she doesn't want anything to do with Nigel Farage. I think that's a pretty foolish thing to say. I think Robert's been a bit more open about this. He's speaking our sort of language. But like I say, Patrick, who knows? I mean, the membership has probably changed massively over the past year or so since Reform UK have been on the march. And I think, like I said before, a lot of the true Conservatives in the Conservative Party membership have probably come over to Reform UK. So Kemi may well get it.
Do you think that that would actually be a bad thing, though? I mean, I do look forward, I would look forward to the idea of Starmer trying to deal with Kemi, in a sense. It would probably stop him being able to, say that everyone on the right's a racist.
Well, it might be a little bit lively on a Wednesday afternoon, Patrick, at the dispatch box, because at the moment, let's be honest, PMQs is quite boring. But Kemi's got a little bit of fire in her belly. Rob's pretty good at the dispatch box as well. But you know what? I think the Conservative Party at the moment are at a busted flush. I really think they are. I mean, cleverly going out. I'm disappointed. I wanted him to actually win the leadership contest, because if he'd have won, I tell you what, Patrick, I'd have been in that place for another 20 years.
Well, there you go. All right, Lee, thank you very, very much. Lee Anderson there, Reform UK MP. Right, and on that note, GB News will be hosting a live debate with the final two Tory candidates, Kemi Badenoch up against Robert Jenrick on the 17th of October at 7 p.m. Now, I'm going to be watching the debate with my very own studio audience right here, and I want you to join me. So go to www.sroaudiences.com to sign up. I think it's there. There it is. There you go. Have a look at that and then type it in and do it. I'll get reaction after the debates from a panel of political heavyweights as well, and my own superstar panellists. Alison Pearson will be here. Lord Sean Bailey will be here. Matthew Larser will be here as well. You could be a part of all of that, so make sure that you get your tickets before they sell out. Well, with that in mind, coming up.
And that would give us, I think, 170...
Dozens of hard-left MPs like Diane Abbott and Dawn Butler have written to the Home Secretary demanding changes to our, quote, racist immigration laws. So will Keir Starmer listen to them? And more importantly, what is so racist about wanting to just control our borders? That's at 10 p.m. But first, well, thanks to you, my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly has reached 220,000, a bit more than that, actually. I'm going to be joined next by a pensioner from England's coldest town who's got a few home truths to say about the scrapping of the winter fuel allowance. And stay tuned, because I'm going to need some help from you as well. So I'll see you in a sec.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan Tonight, weekends from 9 p.m.
Harry and Meghan haven't been pictured together for weeks now. Is there trouble in paradise?
Well, I certainly think that they are rethinking some of their past decisions. This is coming from a new piece in the Daily Mail. There is clearly a professional divorce of sorts unraveling before our eyes. And the Daily Mail says it was ultimately Harry's decision because his main objective right now is to be taken seriously in the charity space. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I believe that Harry is finally taking advice from seasoned PR experts that are saying, you know what, your wife's brand is toxic. To me, I don't think Harry would make that decision on his own. He's so stubborn. He sacrificed so much for Meghan, and I can't see him admitting defeat or admitting that he made a mistake. And in allowing PR experts to make these observations and following their direction, his hands are clean, and he won't necessarily get the wrath of Meghan Markle.
Now, Harry reportedly spent his 40th birthday away from Meghan, instead hiking with his friends.
They do say that Meghan Markle is ultimately the one that planned this trip, so maybe we are being too sensitive about this, but seeing him doing his favorite thing in the world, going to Africa, to, the Well Child Awards, I think that is more alarming.
Let's talk about Prince Andrew, who's got a headache. He's on the clock. What's going on?
Yeah, that's right. he is in jeopardy of violating the Crown Estate's lease rules, which specifically outline that repairs on Royal Lodge must be made to the property in regular intervals. Otherwise, they can terminate that lease agreement. The Express reports that the Duke has been given up until the end of the year to prove that he has the financial resources to refurbish Royal Lodge, or he's going to get the boot. He's going to be evicted.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, coming up, is it really racist to want to just control immigration? I'm not sure it is. But first, thanks to you, my fundraiser for Friends of the Elderly has hit more than £224,000. Look at that. The target is 260 grand. It's all for Friends of the Elderly. You can go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors. Now, I'm going to keep doing everything I can to raise as much money as I can, which is why I'm going to embark on a cold water swim, all right? And I want you to tell me where to do it. I think it's time that I get a bit cold myself, talking about pensioners freezing in their own homes. You can email me your suggestions. You go to gbviews@gbnews.uk. Go there, email in, and tell me where in the country you think I should do that swim. Just put pensioners in the subject line, and I'll read out some of your suggestions a bit later on in the show. But why am I doing this? Well, it's for stories like this. We've got 79-year-old Susan Mensforth, who's from apparently one of the coldest towns in Britain. It's Buxton in North Derbyshire, where it gets as cold as, I think it was minus 10 or so last winter. She's losing her winter fuel payment. And frankly, she's terrified because not just her, it's plenty of other people as well that she knows are going to be in real strife over this. I'm very pleased to say Susan joins me now. Susan, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Now, I think you think it's a bit unfair, this cut in the winter fuel payment, don't you?
I think that the threshold has been set far, far too low. There are people on pension credit are in poverty in any case, but people just above that are also in poverty. I have quite sufficient to live on, although the Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association says that you need for a minimum lifestyle £14,400 a year to live on. Now, those who are just above the pension credit, they're absolutely devastated by this. And I call it utter cruelty. I've got savings, so I'm lucky. But I believe in fighting for other people, for justice.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you, Susan, about this. I know we spoke earlier, because actually there are loads of people that you know around that area, which is going to be one of the coldest parts of England, certainly this winter, who are really going to struggle, aren't they, Susan? Who are going to have to wear outdoor clothes indoors.
Yeah. I mean, I was brought up, as a lot of people were, that you put on an extra layer of clothes. But when you get to my age, as a pensioner, you can't take the exercise you used to get the circulation going. It's going to lead to excess death. I belong to an organisation who takes campaigns for the elderly called Silver Voices, and there are other campaigns for the elderly, the National Pensioners Convention, Age UK, and they've got members who are absolutely terrified about how they're going to get through the winter. Energy prices have just gone up again. Older people tend to spend much more of the day and obviously evening in their homes. So they need lighting, they need heating. But people are having to take the choice between eating and heating. I mean, I've cut back on things, but there are some people who are having to absolutely cut out all but essentials. And when you've worked and paid into the system all of your life, it seems totally unjust. My own MP for High Peak, who's an ex-London lawyer, who was brought up in the Derby area, not in this area. And he seems to think that anybody above the pension credit limit is a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly. And that's right. Well, look, Susan, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us tonight and for making your points and hopefully helping to raise a bit of money and awareness for other people. All the best, Susan. You take care and we'll stay in touch. And you can go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors to donate. It's the weather next, but I'll see you in...
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather from the Met Office. As we go through into tomorrow, it is going to turn drier for many of us with some clearer or brighter skies. But with that, it is also going to be a bit chillier because as the low pressure that's been dominating the weather across the UK recently drifts away towards the east, we will then get a northerly flow, and that northerly air is going to bring something a little bit colder. For the time being, though, still some clouds, some outbreaks of rain across many parts of England and Wales. All of this, though, shifting further southwards with clearer skies developing across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And under these clearer skies, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, turning pretty chilly. Could be a touch of frost in some places. A milder night, though, across the south. Here it is going to be a cloudier start to tomorrow morning. There will be some outbreaks of rain. Could be the odd heavier burst, but most of this will clear through as we go through the morning. For central parts, things brightening up quite quickly, and also some decent bright sunny weather across parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England and Scotland. But all the time there will be some showers around. The showers will be most likely in areas exposed to that northerly wind, so parts of Northern Ireland, Northern Scotland and down the eastern side of England and Scotland as well. But even a few showers are possible elsewhere. We may see 1 or 2 showers developing in some inland places too. But for many, it is going to be a much drier day than the last couple of days, and it's going to be a bit brighter. But like I said, we do have that cold air pushing its way in, so temperatures markedly lower and feeling pretty cold indeed, especially in those brisk northerly winds. As we go towards the end of the week, and a bit of a north-south split developing, wetter weather across northern parts, so Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain, perhaps some winteriness over the higher ground, staying drier and brighter across the southern 2/3 of the UK, however. Again, through the weekend, some rain is likely, mainly in the north. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
And that would give us, I think, 170...
Dozens of hard-left MPs like Diane Abbott demand changes to our racist immigration laws, including...
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic.
Anti-monarchy Clive Lewis and...
You are the wrong one, the violent one, the weird one, whereas I am the chosen one.
Permanently race-obsessed Dawn Butler. So will Keir Starmer cave into them? And...
So as a result of that ballot, James Cleverly is eliminated from the contest, and Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick now go forward to the ballot of members.
It's Badenoch versus Jenrick in the final two to be the next Tory leader. Who do you prefer? Plus...
My uncle nearly lost his life when his ship was torpedoed defending the Falklands.
Not quite, though. Has the Prime Minister just lied there about his uncle being torpedoed in the Falklands War? On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and journalist Nina Mishkop. Oh, and...
God told me to come out here and get a boat. I came out here and got a boat. And everything that he's been telling me over the last 2 days is I'm doing the right thing. He's got my back. I'm in good shape. I ain't sweating it.
Americans are a different breed, aren't they? Hurricane Milton is hurtling towards Florida. In fact, this is the scene at the moment, all right? So it's hitting land as we speak. We are going to take you live to Tampa, where it's all about to kick right off. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Why do so many Labour MPs think just protecting our borders is racist? Next.
A very good evening to you. The time has just gone 10 o'clock. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Tory MPs have now selected the final two candidates in the Conservative leadership election, with Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick making it through to the members' vote. Kemi Badenoch received 42 votes, Robert Jenrick picked up 41, and James Cleverly received 37, meaning he has now been eliminated from the race. In a tweet, Cleverly has thanked his colleagues, party members and the public for their support. GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, spoke to Robert Jenrick earlier on.
I have a very specific plan as to how we do that, whether it's improving the NHS, getting growth going again in our economy, or, yes, securing our borders. I don't believe in platitudes. I want us to have a serious plan now as to how we move forward and get this party back into gear for the good of our country.
Well, Jenrick's rival, Kemi Badenoch, had this to say a short while later.
Doesn't matter. People are hearing what I'm saying and they think my approach is right, that you start with principles first and then policy. We need to unite behind a real conservatism that means something to the country.
And you can watch the final two battle it out in a special live event here on GB News on the 17th of October. To the US, Hurricane Milton, the biggest hurricane in a century, is making landfall this evening. If you're watching on television, these are live pictures we're bringing you from Fort Myers in the United States, where the hurricane is now impacting. A short while ago, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, urged residents to follow all safety advice as he held a press conference, where he also expressed sympathy for those who were recently battered by Hurricane Helene.
Many communities in Hurricane Milton's path do not have a moment to catch their breath between Helene and Milton. Two historic storms in 2 weeks. I want to thank everyone who has followed local guidance to evacuate ahead of landfall. I know it's really tough leaving behind your home, your belongings, everything you own. But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours.
Back at home, it's been announced this evening that Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Downing Street tomorrow as part of a tour to European nations seeking support for Ukraine's resistance against Russia. The Ukrainian president will meet Sir Keir Starmer, with the Prime Minister's official spokesman saying tonight that the meeting will involve broad strategic discussions on allied support for Ukraine. It will be the second time the world leaders meet since Sir Keir Starmer was elected in July. And briefly to the Middle East now, where the Israeli Defence Minister has said that Israel's retaliation against Iran will be lethal, precise and surprising. The comments come as Foreign Secretary David Lammy is in the region, where he will reiterate calls for a ceasefire in Lebanon and Gaza. The US President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this evening, and the president affirmed Israel's right to protect its citizens from Hezbollah. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
A load of Labour MPs think it's racist to control our borders. So 25 Labour MPs and independents have written to Home Secretary Yvette Cooper to tell her that she must acknowledge the link between racism and hostile immigration policies. They say immigration policy and legislation has been designed to exclude and other people of colour in the UK for decades. Well, in London, 46.2% of residents identify as Asian, black, mixed or other ethnic groups, and I do imagine that the people of Birmingham, Greater Manchester and Luton would be very shocked to find out that our immigration laws had in fact excluded people of colour. You know, this is rubbish, don't you really? Because all you have to do is go outside and have a look for yourself. In fact, since Brexit, we've seen an increase in immigration from non-European, non-white nations. So what are the racial demographics of people coming across the Channel as well? And Labour is now letting all of them claim asylum. I mean, this hard-left bunch of MPs also appear to want the school curriculum to be drawn up alongside racial justice organisations. So what does that mean? This maths class has been brought to you in conjunction with Black Lives Matter. The MPs include Clive Lewis, who protested when he had to swear allegiance to the King.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles according to law.
Great. Dawn Butler, who sees racism every time she opens her eyes, but was forced to apologise, actually, and certainly retract something, after accidentally including rapists and murderers in a social media post that appeared to suggest that black people were superior.
You are the wrong one, the violent one, the weird one, whereas I am the chosen one, because I am of the first ones. You see this skin I'm in, this beautiful mahogany brown, this skin you don't like, I believe. So why you try so hard to achieve by burning yourself in the sun? For me, there's
Diane Abbott's climbed on board. To be fair, she might have struggled to add up the number of ethnic minorities that we have let into Britain every single year.
And that would give us, I think, 170... We would find the money. We would find the money because we'd look at capital gains tax. The Tories have cut capital gains tax and we want to restore it. And that would give us, I think, 170...
Yeah. The problem is this. They've written to the Home Secretary now to try to preempt the government's border security, asylum and immigration bill. So do you think that Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer would rather appease the people who think controlling immigration is racist or people who want to actually control immigration? Now, it is not racist to want to control your borders, and I and millions of other people are sick of being told that it is. Let's get thoughts from my panel now. The director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks. And, of course, as well, we've got journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, I'll start with you on this. What do you make of these 25 MPs there chiming in and saying that our immigration laws are inherently linked to racism?
Even worse than that, Patrick, they're saying that you can't decouple immigration policy and racism. And I would say that we must decouple the two things. It's completely extraordinary. One, I mean, they haven't said this in terms, but one sort of thinks that what they're leaning towards is the UK is about 80% Caucasian. The world population of a whole is about 16% Caucasian. And you sort of sense that subconsciously they think we'll be a racist country until we've got exact proportional representation of the United Colours of Benetton and only 16% of people in the UK are white. It's nothing to do with race. I say let's get back to Martin Luther King's doctrine that people should be judged by the content of their character, not the colour of their skin. And by the way, I wouldn't mind our immigration policy being based on that, if you judge it on the content of character and be colourblind on the rest of it.
Quite. And Adam, you know, I do wonder whether or not it's quite concerning now, because they've made quite a big song and dance over this about writing to the Home Secretary. It's ahead of some, you know, supposed new immigration laws that we're going to get. And I can't help but wonder whether or not our Home Secretary is going to be more inclined to listen to them or the millions of people who actually want something done about the levels of immigration.
And I think the Home Secretary will listen to them. We always said that Labour was going to be woke and weak, and I think they're going to pander to this noise. Can you imagine saying to the leader of China, to Japan or Nigeria, saying, you're racist, you know, you've got too many of your own kind or you know, ethnicity in your country? You'd be laughed at. Now, why does Britain, everything has to be about race and colour? And these MPs, all I see from them is anti-white rhetoric a lot of the time. It sows division. It puts race relations back decades. And it needs to stop.
Well, what they were saying, well, I mean, amongst other things, to be fair, Nina, with this thing, we need to make sure that something like the Windrush scandal never happens again. Right, now, yeah, obviously we do. But I don't know if we can really, in all honesty, say that our current immigration laws are inherently racist, are they?
Not necessarily inherently racist, but the Windrush scandal is the key to this whole thing, because they want to make sure that nothing like that would ever happen again. And the truth is that the policies that produced the Windrush scandal are still there, embedded in the Home Office. They haven't been. The laws haven't been changed at all, or the policy hasn't been changed. The report on this was suppressed until recently. The hostile environment, which meant that life was made so impossible, they would make people go back home. Well, the trouble was these people were already home. They've been living here for 40 years, and there was an enormous scandal. Let's just work. Can we just quickly say what the Windrush scandal is? Because
I think everyone knows what the Windrush scandal is.
I don't think they necessarily do. I mean, these are the people who came here on the Windrush after the end of the war to help build Britain up.
Yeah.
They, as part of the Commonwealth, they were then given citizenship and allowed to live and work here.
Exactly. Look, exactly. And then, unfortunately, we ended up deporting some of them wrongly.
More than that, they ruined lives. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't get
medical. What's the law you want changed then, Nina?
I don't want a law change.
But you're saying the same laws are still in place. So what do we need to change?
The same policies have never been revoked.
But are they? And this is the thing, though, because Mark, look, I look at it now. We've only deported something like 3% of Channel migrants in the last 6 years. So that doesn't seem particularly hostile as far as I can gather. I just wonder whether this is a classic attempt of people who really, if you scratch the surface, fundamentally believe in open borders, to use a historic wrong or an example of a wrong.
Which has not yet been righted.
Right, to try to influence current policy.
That's exactly it. So the Windrush thing, I think you'd find the four of us would actually agree on what a disaster, nightmare and how immoral it was. But we are now going back a few generations.
Exactly.
I mean, this is a bit like saying we've got to go and fight the Germans in terms of the history of it.
There are still people who have not been compensated.
I understand that.
They're waiting for people to die off before they get the money.
But that's not to do with a 2024 immigration policy. Justice should be served, recompense should be given. But that is nothing to do with what our immigration policy should be here in October 2024 to new people coming in. We're not only fighting yesterday's war, if we look at that as being the basis of our present immigration policy, we're fighting a war of 3 generations ago.
No, we're not. We're talking about people who live here, who have suffered.
Recompense them, but how does that inform what our policy should be now?
The other thing they called for was for the compensation to be paid more
These are the same sort of MPs that would want to go back and pay reparations for things that happened 300 years ago.
We're not talking about 300 years, Adam. We're talking about people who live and work here now.
Oh, let him talk.
Look, at the end of the day, they're our borders, and we are filling up, and services are failing. You know, society is failing as a whole. We need to put the walls up, and we need to have stronger immigration laws. The Dominican Republic have just started mass deporting Haitians. Are they racist? Come on, why can every country in the world... Germany have just started deporting Syrians and people from Afghanistan.
Pakistan deported a lot of people from Afghanistan.
Why is there no mass shouting from the left of them? Why is it always Britain? Why are we always racist? And it's always these type of people that want to label us. Adam, you can't talk about immigration because you're racist. No, I'm just a worried father that doesn't want to bring kids up with people that I don't know that are coming over.
And you don't care whether they're black, white, or anything in between.
Care.
Right? Yeah, same here. It is about the quantum and the type, and for all of the history, it is about what sort of immigration policy do we need today. And we've got to understand that the country, the UK, is a bit like joining a club. And if you want to join the club, you've got to abide by the club rules, whatever your colour is.
Do you not think that some of the people around Greater Manchester, as the people around Birmingham, around Luton and around London, would be quite shocked to learn that our immigration policies had discriminated against people who were non-white?
I think everybody would be shocked to learn that, because we absolutely did. We did do that. And
with respect, Nina, it doesn't look like that's around certain parts of the UK.
So you're saying that certain parts of the UK look more black than white?
No, that's certainly true.
That's a fact.
I'm not saying. By the way,
what is wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. You know that's not what I'm saying. My point is that it indicates that maybe we haven't been discriminating.
It proves our point, not theirs.
The Windrush were people who were completely discriminated against.
That was the Windrush, yes.
But that's thousands of people.
But that's about justice and compensation. That's not about today's immigration policy.
Because the policies are still within the framework. So that's why they're asking the framework.
What policy?
Which policy do you want changed?
The policies that discriminate
against
black and Asian
Which policy is it?
We don't. Well, why did they discriminate against the Windrush people?
But that's 60 years ago.
No, it's not 60 years ago. It is not. The hostile environment policy was instituted in 2012.
So which is the particular clause of which
and that's because we have got a bad immigration problem that needs to be sorted out.
I agree that. Everybody knows that. You're not very clever to say that, because everybody knows
I'm not very clever to say that, right?
No, because you're trumpeting as if some fantastic
these Labour MPs are the same.
Everybody understands that.
These Labour MPs are the same MPs that would fight Brexit. And as you said in your monologue, Brexit opened up the world to people of colour. Not just, preferential treatment for immigrants from the EU. These same people tried to stop Brexit. So make their minds up.
You're
what are
making
we?
very sweeping statements here. That you can't say they're all. You tout these things as fact.
But that is a
fact. You
fact.
don't know that all Labour people thought that, or all left-wing people thought that.
You could money that those 25 MPs include none or very few Brexiteers.
So what?
Well, it's about a world view.
Proves my
no,
point.
it doesn't prove your point at all.
It's about a world
view. It does not
view.
prove your point. And I want to go back to a point earlier, which is that they're talking against white people. Who has spoken out against white people?
Well, to be fair, Dawn Butler did appear to do something which appeared to suggest that black people were of a superior race. Now, she might deny that, but some of the lyrics of the poem were like, you're the weird one, I am the chosen one, all of that stuff, which...
And I can have the opinion that I feel like it's anti-white rhetoric.
Well, that's one woman doing a kind of poetic thing, and there are all sorts of.
Well, let's just be colourblind and get serious about the issue, which is essentially about economics, demographics, and numbers.
Yeah, and what they really want is, from what I can gather anyway, is for our current Home Secretary to openly acknowledge, in the framing of whatever immigration or border laws she is about to submit to the House of Commons, that there has always been and will always be a linking to immigration laws and racism.
And it's vital that Yvette Cooper states exactly the opposite, that our immigration approach will be colour-blind, not only discoupled from it, completely detached.
That's what they're asking for.
They can't be uncoupled.
Okay.
They're saying they can't be uncoupled.
It's been proven.
All right, OK, well, we're going to...
The Home Office report proved it.
All right, OK, we will be back with you. We will be back with you in a few minutes' time, because we're going to have all tomorrow's newspaper front pages. But yes, yet again, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the equivalent of an extra £3,000 in your bank account every month. It's a whopping 36k in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to make that money yours.
This is your chance.
Coming up, I'll have the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Oh, and Hurricane Milton is hurtling towards Florida, but one man is not leaving.
God told me to come out here and get a boat. I came out here and got a boat. And everything that he's been telling me over the last 2 days is I'm doing the right thing. He's got my back. I'm in good shape. I ain't sweating it.
I've got an update for you from the man who's been nicknamed Lieutenant Dan. I'll also go live to Florida for all of the latest in just a few moments' time. But first, James Cleverly is out. Kemi Badenoch versus Robert Jenrick for Tory leader. Who would make the better leader? I have got a former Tory minister, Steve Baker. He's joining me live in the studio next, and he's going to reveal for the first time who he's backing. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week, Free Speech Brighton, a sister group of the Free Speech Union, claimed that they were kicked out of a pub in the city for discussing trans issues in schools. The group booked a room in a pub for an evening of speeches and discussion when they claimed security guards came and asked them to leave after one speaker began to talk about this topic. Now, a clip of the evening was, in fact, posted to social media. Can you give us some background to what happened, what the event was for, and why you'd booked it?
Our normal pub was being refurbished, so about 3 weeks ago I went in and booked a local pub for a meeting, and they didn't ask any questions about what sort of meeting. It was in a back room. It was mainly secluded from the rest of the pub, so I thought it would be fine. But anyway, they didn't ask any questions. They took my booking. We arrived, I set up. The first speaker started speaking, who's a retired teacher who is concerned about trans in schools and how that affects children. But she was talking purely about children. She was not talking about adults who have protected characteristics, obviously. And then towards the end of her speech, I became aware of security guards standing behind me in the middle room. So I went to have a quick word with them and see what they wanted. And they said, we've had a complaint. And I said, what's the complaint? And they wouldn't say. Then they said, will you come and talk to the landlord? So I went to the front of the bar and they indicated this chap was the landlord, but he looked about 20, so I don't think he was the landlord. So I said, I hear you have a complaint about us. Can you tell me what it is? And he couldn't.
That sounds very Kafkaesque, as though you've committed a crime, but they can't tell you what the crime
is.
Well,
that's what I couldn't understand, because, you know, obviously they can't tell you who the complainant is, but they should be able to tell you what the complaint is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages very shortly. But first, bit of a shock today. James Cleverly was out of the Tory leadership contest, which meant that Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are left to battle it out. So Badenoch finished in first place with 42 votes from Tory MPs. Jenrick, well, it was a close second, wasn't it? 41. So a Rizzler paper between them. But the result has sent shockwaves through Westminster. James Cleverly won 39 votes. In comparison to Jenrick's 30 and Badenoch's 31, that was the last round of voting. But Nevertheless, Tory members will now have to decide between Badenoch and Jenrick. Online voting for Tory members, I believe, opens tomorrow. So the new leader will then be announced on the 2nd of November. I'm joined now by former Tory Minister Steve Baker. Now, Steve, you've kept your powder dry on telly so far, haven't you? You've kept your cards close to your chest. But who are you going to back?
I shall vote for Kemi, and with a good heart too.
Why?
Because she's authentic and she's got a ferocious passion for what she believes. So I think for a long time the Conservative Party's been all over the place because it's kind of lacked an intellectual keel. It's forgotten what it believed and sort of followed polls rather than trying to lead them. And what Kemi does is she truly believes in Conservative ideas and she argues for them with great passion. And it's that authenticity which, for me, tells me it should be Kemi.
What Robert Jenrick certainly wants to make this about, and it may well turn out to be this way, is essentially a decision for the Tory membership over whether or not they want to leave the ECHR.
Well, yeah, but there's a couple of things about that. First, leaving the ECHR is not itself the policy objective. The policy objective is to control immigration and, in particular, illegal migration. Now, we might need to leave the ECHR, but the other European nations who are convention members have got similar problems, particularly Italy, for example, with people coming across the Med. So it ought to be possible to renegotiate. And let me tell you, as somebody who's been a Northern Ireland Office Minister, we would have very considerable political difficulties even if we could navigate the legal difficulties of extricating the convention from the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. So it's not trivial to do it. But also, the other point is, in 5 years of a Labour government, I'll be very surprised if the ECHR is still the biggest issue when we go into the next general election.
Well, quite possibly, yes. But where is Kemi when it comes to immigration in general? Because I do believe that she was quite happy with our actual immigration levels as of a year or so ago, wasn't she?
Well, I think you'll find that if Kemi wins, she controls migration. The idea that anyone could lead the Conservative Party into a general election without pledging to control migration and get the numbers down, that is fanciful.
You were pledging that when you were in office, Steve.
Yeah, well, the Conservative Party's cried wolf for too long, and that is one of the problems that we've had. That's one of the reasons why we earned the hiding that the electorate gave us. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's got to be sorted out, and it's going to be a long journey, tough journey, to persuade the public that this time we're going to get numbers down.
Look, I can see the appeal, 100%, by the way, of Keir Starmer having to stand at the dispatch box opposite Kemi Badenoch every Wednesday and her kind of, sitting him on her knee and knocking him around a little bit. I think most people would quite enjoy seeing that in the way that she's done with Angela Rayner, etc. A concern possibly for Kemi Badenoch is that maybe sometimes she puts her foot in it a little bit. We had the maternity pay comments, didn't we, at conference. I know she feels they were misrepresented, but the point was that for the next couple of days, it was all about that in the media. Do you really want another leader where they come out and they say something and then you end up cleaning up after them?
No, you don't want that. Obviously, you don't want that. But that's a choice it's a choice for her to deal with that. I mean, we all have to engage brain before we speak. And in an interview like this, obviously, it's a dynamic conversation. Yep. And I'm sitting here all the time thinking, what do I really want to say that? And you've just got to manage what's going on in your brain and make sure that you're only taking on fights for which you're well prepared. And that's obviously what went wrong with the maternity pay. And that, to me, yes, of course, you've got to be able to communicate well, but that, to me, is a problem that can be dealt with. But it's a choice for her to just decide that she's not going to do that anymore. But the thing for me, the thing you can't fix in a politician is true belief. They say there's two kinds of politicians. The windsocks, who believe whatever they need to believe, depending which way the wind is blowing, and the signposts. She's a signpost.
So you, reading between the lines there, Steve, you don't entirely believe everything that Robert Jenrick says now, because he would deny this, but I suppose you could argue that he's had a slight transformation. I think, and in fact, I kind of know, having spoken to him, I think his angle really is that he was kind of crystallised by actually being in the Home Office and seeing the scale of the problem.
Well, I would take Robert at face value. He's a good man, and I'd take what he says in good faith. And I've obviously known him since he was elected, and I hope I haven't ever had a bad word to say about him. But, obviously it's true that this observation that he has shifted his position, but equally, if you can't in life learn something and move what you believe, then really you're not on a journey like anyone ought to be. So, I think I can forgive somebody changing their views, but the thing for me, I have watched closely for 14 years as Tory leaders really haven't believed with enough sort of conviction what they were doing, and the result is that the ship of state gets tossed about. So for me, Kemi is a true believer in solid Conservative principles, somebody who wants renewal. She's the person for me, and I will back her wholeheartedly.
Does she win voters back from Reform? Because that's a big issue.
Well, she'll have to, but she'll have to do more than that. She'll have to win back Conservative voters who went to the Lib Dems or went to Labour. In somewhere like Wickham, you know, almost half of my previous voters, Conservative previous voters, stayed at home in disillusionment.
Yeah, that was a problem.
And, you know, people have got to come out, they've got to come back from the Lib Dems. It's a very, very steep and tough road.
Very quickly, very finally on this. You said if you lost... which unfortunately you did, sorry about that. Yeah. But you would spend your days skydiving, I think.
Motorcycling, fast catamaran sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the truth
Not
is...
quite the George best response, to be fair. You kept it PG, but how are you getting on with all of that?
Well, I can't go skydiving because I've had the COVID 100-day cough, and if I adopt the position, I start coughing, so I haven't skydived. But I've ridden my motorcycle around Scotland with one friend and Wales with another. I'm having a good time. I'm starting a company, I'm signing up to another one, so I'm having a good life.
Good stuff. Well, look, great to see you and all the best. Hope to see you again very, very soon. That is Steve Baker there. Right, well, on this note, GB News will be hosting a live debate with the final two Tory candidates. It's Kemi Badenoch, it's Robert Jenrick. It's, as it stands, I believe, the only televised debate between these two. And it's going to be on the 17th of October at 7 p.m. I'm going to be watching that debate with my very own audience right here in this studio, and I would like you to come and join me. So go to www.sroaudiences.com to sign up. I'm going to get reaction after the debate from a panel of political heavyweights. I'm yet to ask Steve, but maybe I will when we go to an advert break. And my own superstar panellists as well, Alison Pearson, Lord Bailey and Matthew Larzer. You can be a part of all of that, so come on. Go and get your tickets now before they sell out. But coming up, I'm going to have all of the front pages for tomorrow. I'll bring you them next. And millions have evacuated as Hurricane Milton is hurtling towards Florida. One man, though, who's been nicknamed Lieutenant Dan, is refusing to go.
God told me to come out here and get a boat. I came out here and got a boat. And everything that he's been telling me over the last 2 days is I'm doing the right thing. He's got my back. I'm in good shape. I ain't sweating it.
I've got an update from Lieutenant Dan to bring you in a couple of minutes, so stay tuned.
Good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather from the Met Office. As we go through into tomorrow, it is going to turn drier for many of us with some clearer or brighter skies, but with that, it is also going to be a bit chillier because as the low pressure that's been dominating the weather across the UK recently drifts away towards the east, we will then get a northerly flow, and that northerly air is going to bring something a little bit colder. For the time being, though, still some clouds, some outbreaks of rain across many parts of England and Wales. All of this, though, shifting further southwards with clearer skies developing across Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland. And under these clearer skies, temperatures are going to take a bit of a drop, turning pretty chilly. Could be a touch of frost in some places. A milder night, though, across the south. Here it is going to be a cloudier start to tomorrow morning. There will be some outbreaks of rain. Could be the odd heavier burst, but most of this will clear through as we go through the morning. For central parts, things brightening up quite quickly, and also some decent bright sunny weather across parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England and Scotland. But all the time there will be some showers around. The showers will be most likely in areas exposed to that northerly wind, so parts of Northern Ireland, Northern Scotland and down the eastern side of England and Scotland as well. But even a few showers are possible elsewhere. We may see 1 or 2 showers developing in some inland places too, but for many it is going to be a much drier day than the last couple of days, and it's going to be a bit brighter. But like I said, we do have that cold air pushing its way in, so temperatures markedly lower and feeling pretty cold indeed, especially in those brisk northerly winds. As we go towards the end of the week, and a bit of a north-south split developing, wetter weather across northern parts, so Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain, perhaps some winteriness over the higher ground, staying drier and brighter across the southern 2/3 of the UK, however. Again, through the weekend, some rain is likely, mainly in the north. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight, and I've got the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. So here they are. The Metro. Tory fight veers to the right. Leadership contest shock, they say. We've spoken about that. It's going to be a close-run thing now between Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch. The Eye, workers get right to flexible working. Under new Rayner law, employers must give one of 8 reasons for refusing to allow them, I believe, to work from home more, I think it is, essentially. Flexible working can include starting later or allow for taking children to school as well, other childcare reasons. So there we go. Let's go to the Daily Express now. Winter fuel pensioners now face a tax raid. Pensioners are going to lose the winter fuel payments, and they're also going to be apparently an extra 120,000 people being hit with tax demands for the first time. This is a freeze in the amount of income allowed before the taxman claws the cash away. So more retirees are going to be clobbered with this. It's a never-ending whammy for pensioners. The Guardian, PM's vow to end austerity needs a £25 billion tax rise. So, you know, here we go. Oh, what's on the Telegraph? Same thing. £25 billion tax rise pain is on the way. That's what the IFS is warning the Institute for Fiscal Studies. I mean, it's hard to see how they do all of this without hiking taxes, to be honest, but there we go. Let's go to The Sun. They're going to round us off with Cooper admits Wembley jolly, Swiftgate, Home Secretary's free gig after pressing for VIP police escort. Look, we spoke about this at 9 o'clock, so if you're just joining us, I'll fill you in on it a bit. But the Home Secretary went to watch Taylor Swift for free because her husband, Ed Balls, got free tickets from Taylor Swift's music label. On the day that Yvette Cooper went to watch Taylor Swift, it is reported that Taylor Swift got a taxpayer-funded police escort that is normally reserved for the likes of the royal family, etc. It's not a great look. It is, of course, denied that there was any wrongdoing in all of that, but again, it's not a great look. I'm going to introduce my panel again here onto this now. I think we should start... to be honest with you, it's kind of all rolled into one. The £25 billion tax rise, but also what's on the front of the Express, which is winter fuel pensioners now face tax raid. So when Keir Starmer said during the election, when he wasn't telling us what his dad used to do, he was saying, I won't tax working people. I actually now just think whether or not he should have just said, I am going to grind pensioners into the dirt.
Well, I mean, they sort of go arm in arm, don't they? Once politicians of any stripe rule out, I'm not going to tax A, B or C, you pretty much know they are going to tax D, E and F. It's worth pointing out, here on my understanding, I haven't read the Express, but the issue here is that people on the state pension are being dragged into paying income tax. And that is true because we've frozen the threshold, so it's about £12,500 a year, there or thereabouts, you start paying income tax. Well, if you do keep the triple lock on state pensions, eventually more and more people are going to get dragged into that band. So it's in part a reflection that the state pension has become more and more generous. But tying that in with the 25 billion, Patrick, you said, well, you know, God only knows how they balance the books without this tax raid. I still think we're looking at the problem down the wrong end of the telescope. Public spending is out of control. It is unsustainable. Taxes probably can't go up much more. This tax raid will probably scare off as much economic activity as it will tax, and that is a huge problem. And Labour, actually politicians of all stripes, have got to be honest, and we've got to get spending down.
Let me go into a bit of detail on this, and I'll put this to you, Adam. So the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the IFS, has said that the Chancellor's pledge to protect government spending meant that she was on course for a tax-raising budget that could surpass the post-election raids launched by both Gordon Brown in '97 and George Osborne in 2010. This is stark. They've warned that it would push the tax burden up to 37.9%, its highest share in peacetime. That's astonishing, isn't it?
It is astonishing, and it's worrying because again, when I speak to people, they're so negative about the future of this country. Now, we need to grow our way out of the problem and the hole that we're in. All that Labour are going to do is dig us further. Targeting the pensioners, it's unforgivable. There's so many worried out there. Again, if we'd known this before the election, they wouldn't have got the landslide that they got. So they really were lying to us pre-election.
There's another thing buried in this as well, which I've just seen now. So Rachel Reeves is expected to announce, a tax hike on pensions, capital gains, and inheritance tax as well. I mean, Nina, if they'd have said they were going to do this when they got elected, they wouldn't have been elected during the election campaign, would they?
They would have been elected because nobody was going to re-elect the Tories. The Tories had made such a complete mess of everything. And the reason all this pain is going to be inflicted, if all that's true, this is supposition, this is not fact. This is supposition. People are theorising about how they're going to do this.
Well, the Institute for Fiscal Studies are, which is quite a good news. It's not just me, is it?
That's their job. They've got to come up with a good guess. But it's still a guess, isn't it?
I bet they do.
Well, you can bet all you like, but nobody knows until Rachel Reeves stands there and says this is what's going to happen. And the point being that all of this has been caused by the last 14 years. Because there's no... You're right about growth. Of course we need growth. But how come there was no growth under the Tories? This is just ridiculous to blame everything on Labour. They have got to sort the mess out.
Well, part of the reason there was
can.
no growth under the Tories, Nina, and I'd say this as a member of the Conservative Party, is the Conservatives spent too much and taxed too much. And if you have colossal government spending going up and up and up, and taxes going up, as they did under the Conservative government, you are unlikely to get growth. Now, the Labour Party has looked at this failed strategy and has decided to double down on it.
We don't know that yet.
Well, all right, we're speculating on the basis of this newspaper story. But I will bet you any money you want that taxes will go up and spending will go up. And that was the great failure of 14 years of Conservative government.
How else would you do it then?
Well, I'd get spending down.
Well, how would you do that? What would you cut your spending on?
The welfare budget at £230 billion is crazy.
Which portion of the welfare budget? The pensioners?
I'd sack about 100,000 civil servants.
I would end the triple lock on pensions.
There you go, then. So that's interesting, isn't it?
Right. I would end the triple lock on pensions.
Right, OK.
And,
thank you. You're taking money out of my pocket by saying that.
Well, yes, we've got to get spending down. You can't just say that as a wish. You've got to start to live.
You can't say the poor old pensioners, let's bring out our violins, and then say, I'm going to cut the triple lock.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Well, I'm paraphrasing.
So we've got to have a serious discussion about how the £1.2 trillion that the government spends every year is cut to something like $1 trillion. Now, we can argue about where to prioritise
payments for the disabled, you're going to cut back on those?
I'm not presenting... You were just saying that Rachel Reeves has got... I'm not presenting a budget.
How do you do it?
We need to agree we need to save about $200 billion some way or other.
Can I just bring Adam into this? Because when I look at things like this, I just think loads of people are going to leave the UK.
I would leave the UK if I had the funds and the ability to take my 3 kids out. Not just for safety, because I think this country is going downhill fast under this regime. Now, the thing is, what worries me, these tax hikes and this doom and gloom from this budget that is going to hit very soon is going to hit consumer confidence. That means people are not going to come to the pub and spend their money. They're not going to go to the shops and spend their money. We are going downhill very fast, and you're going to see a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of insolvencies in the early part of next year, and this is going to get very, very
wasn't
messy.
that happening under the Conservatives? Weren't pubs shutting down the Conservatives for years now?
We're going to have to switch it on because important stuff. There's important stuff. We're going to go now across the pond to Florida. Hurricane Milton is expected to be the biggest hurricane in a century. It's hurtling towards Florida. Millions of residents have evacuated. They're bracing for the worst, and it's supposedly going to hit landfall in under 2 hours' time. But one man is refusing to leave. Meet Lieutenant Dan.
God told me to come out here and get a boat. I came out here and got a boat. And everything that he's been telling me over the last 2 days is I'm doing the right thing. He's got my back. I'm in good shape. I ain't sweating it.
So he's on a boat in Tampa Harbour, and people thought he would just leave once it got really bad, but he hasn't. He's still there tonight.
Dan! We need an interview! There he is! There's our guy! Yep, look at him! Yay! How we doing? Give the people an update.
So far, so
good. We're staying on this side of the pole, but it's actually still low tide. If you believe that.
He says it's still low tide when it's in 3 hours high tide, but his boat is on the concrete.
Let's just show you some live images that we've got at the moment from Florida. Oh, well, I tell you what, I'm in Florida as well. Look at me, look at that. Oh, there we go. All right, OK. So that is Florida there, which is in Clearwater, Florida, or Sarasota, Florida. There we are. And, I mean, look, it's... well, it's supposedly going to get a heck of a lot worse than that. God, what do you reckon to Lieutenant Dan there? Has he been a bit selfish? Someone might have to come and rescue him.
Yeah, I think he is. Look, each to their own. I'm a live and let live kind of person, but it seems to me that the guidance and the prediction is pretty clear here, and you are being foolhardy, I think, to behave in this fashion. And you know, there is an expense on other people. You're not just taking that risk yourself. So, you know, I sort of, in some ways, admire the bravery, but it seems to me sheer folly as well.
Stupidity. Yeah. That is having a death wish. That boat could end up 3 miles inland by tomorrow.
Yeah, we're not a fan of Lieutenant Dan, I think. Look, we're going to have to hit this break because we've got to bring in the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and reveal Greatest Britain Union jackass. So stay tuned.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The London premiere of the first Bond film, Dr. No, was 61 years ago.
Wow.
Today, which is just quite something. Let's talk to AJ Chowdhury, who's a Bond movie expert. Actually, I mean, obviously there's been the evolution in the films, but there's still that longevity there. They've tweaked, they've changed, but we still have a passion for it.
Absolutely. James Bond is a British cultural heirloom. From the Ian Fleming novels and the literary heritage to the movies still being produced by the family, the Broccoli family, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. They're fantastic. They're global brand leaders, but also, at the end of the day, they employ lots of people in the film industry. They've kept the institutions in Britain alive and around the world. It's the best filmmakers around the world. Great actors, great stars, but constant renewal and giving us something different, yet something traditional.
I really like this sort of gritty Daniel Craig stuff.
Whereas I don't.
No, you're not a fan. But the genre has changed from something that was slightly comedic, really, quite light and fun, to something a bit heavier. Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
You know, there's renewal. Like, I'm sure people... I grew up with Timothy Dalton. He's my favourite Bond. George Lazenby, the one-off, is in the most critically acclaimed Bond film. And Daniel Craig has made the brand so commercially and critically acclaimed. So we're now all waiting on bated breath for the next James Bond.
Who do you think it could be? Who's your money on?
Nobody knows at the moment.
But Sean Connery came back, didn't he, and made a Bond movie that wasn't officially sanctioned. It's all very bizarre.
Sean Connery came back a couple of times. He left after You Only Live Twice, then came back again, of course, with enough money. He comes back, and there's a complex legal situation. Sean Connery had a kind of love-hate relationship with James Bond. Unfortunately, that's how he's remembered.
GB News, the People's Channel.
OK, welcome back. Look, just before I get to the last couple of newspapers, there was obviously a little bit of confusion just before we went to the break there. We were hoping to speak to someone who is in Florida live about the nature of the hurricane that's hitting there. We also were due to have a couple of live feeds. Well, unfortunately, the live feeds appear to have gone down. This is as that hurricane is hitting land. And unfortunately, we couldn't actually get through any more to the person we were hoping to talk to. So we do hope that they're OK, but it does appear that things are indeed very, very serious in Florida. So we'll bring you more updates as we get it. Let's just go to the last couple of papers now. The Times, threat of £25 billion tax bomb after Reeves' vow. Well, we've spoken about this already. The Yvette Cooper freebie for Taylor Swift, of course, is also leading the way there. The Daily Mail, business fury as Labour's revolution for workers. This is essentially making it easier, well, for workers to sue for unfair dismissal from day one. Flexible working to be default for all. A red tape nightmare, they say, that will kill jobs. So much for Starmer's growth agenda. I mean, look, it does appear at face value to favour people who you know, it would be quite keen to sit on their backside and do as little work as possible all day. But anyway, right, we're going to go straight to Great Britain and Union Jackass now. Who's your greatest Britain, please?
It's collective, Britain's millionaires. I think we don't praise our millionaires enough. We've talked about all of this sort of tax, black hole, all of the rest of it. How are we going to finance public services? We gear our tax position to take as much as possible from the rich. Unfortunately, millionaires are now fleeing Britain at a faster rate than any other country in the world, bar China. Let's actually give them a bit of praise and let's try and attract more of them to Britain.
I am not a millionaire and probably never will be, but what I will say is it seems quite perverse that we say we demand so much money from them and then treat them like absolute dirt.
We need more. We need more of them.
Yeah, all right. Go on then.
Mine is Paul Staines, a.k.a. Guido Fawkes, on X, for his relentless pursuit of the truth with Starmer and the penthouse arrangements. He's going nowhere, and I think there's more to come out.
Oh, OK, all right. Lenina, who's your greatest Briton?
John Lennon. Today would have been his 84th birthday, and we should always celebrate the fact that we had such a musical genius that we produced and an advocate for peace, and even if his life was cut short. And Yoko Ono's Imagine Peace Tower of Light will be lit in the bay in Iceland and dedicated to John. It's been going for 17 years. It's lit every night on this day every year. And I went to the installation of it, invited by Yoko.
So you're a friend of Yoko?
I'm on the Christmas card list, yes.
You're on Yoko's Christmas card list. You've been to South America with Freddie Mercury, and you're on Yoko Ono's Christmas card
And I'm
list.
stuck on the sofa with...
I was just about to say this.
How the mighty have fallen! How the mighty have fallen!
You know what? I need to pull a few favours with you. Right, OK, today's winner of the Greatest Britain, Guido Fawkes, I think. Why not? Hey, well done, Guido. OK, who's your Union Jackass, please?
Bridget Phillipson, Education Secretary. Another sort of twinge of hypocrisy here. She was playing hockey on AstroTurf while saying that actually private schools don't need any AstroTurf, but she's also leading the charge against private schools, again going to trying to get public spending down. We need more people like Adam to keep his kids in private school, not to put them in the state sector. She's my villain of the week.
All right, go on then.
Mine is Rachel Reeves for her unforgivable attack on pensioners since the election, and it's only going to get worse.
Well, it sounds like it is only going to get worse. Nina?
The two Wagatha Christie idiots, Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy, which shows what happens when you have too much money and not enough brains, and mix that with inflated egos, and they do women no favours.
So I might shock people with this. In my defence, I have, I think, gone for both Bridget Phillipson and Rachel Reeves probably at least 5 times each in the last few weeks, and I back that deservedly so. I could have very easily gone for them again tonight, but I do think this Wagatha Christie thing that massively gets on my proverbials. You know, the idea, the legal bills, the cost, the time, the effort. For
minibars.
For nothing, for no reason. So two wags can just go at each other in a court. Honestly, just let it go. It's pathetic.
But also, if footballers weren't paid such ludicrously grotesque salaries, this would never happen.
They generate that money.
They do generate that money.
They'll be filling the country
but also,
too.
let's be honest, Wayne Rooney, you know, can no longer tell his missus to not do stuff like this on account of the fact that he's no doubt still very sorry about a load of other stuff. Right. OK, well done, everybody. Thank you very much. I've had a great show this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather from the Met Office as we go through into